Alright, so today we are talking about our vocabulary. We're starting Unit 6, and this is our probability unit. And so we're going to first just talk basically about probability. So the first probability term is actually just probability. So if you open up to the left, you should have a flap. So the probability of an event happen, and that's what that P and the event and the little thing is the number of favorable outcomes over the number of total possible. So if we look at this little spinner, there are 6 possible outcomes. So on the bottom of this is going to be 6. Because that's the total possible. You have 1 happening, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6. So the probability of an even number happening, well, there are 1, 2, 3 even numbers. So I'm going to circle my outcomes. And normally we represent probability as a percentage or as a fraction. So in this case we're representing it as a fraction first. So always represent it first as a fraction. So that's for the probability of an even number happening. Next, probability of 2 happening. Well, that can only happen once on the spinner. There are only 1 2s. Alright, probability of factor of 6. So remember, a factor is a number multiplied together. So 1 and 6 multiplied together to get 6, and 2 and 3. So that's actually 4 out of 6. We can reduce these fractions to where it's like 1/2. In this case, it's 2/3. Probability of 3 or a 4. So the probability of 3 or a 4 happening. So one of those, that's 2 probabilities, 2 possibilities. So it reduces down to 1/3. So that is probability. So probability of this chance of an event occurring. The probability can be any number from 1 to 0, including 0 and 1. So 0 would be 0%. And remember, if we changed 1 to a percent, it'd be 100%. So technically, you have from 0% to 100% chance. There's not more than 100% chance. We like to say there is, but there's not. Probability can be written as a fraction, a decimal, or a percent. Next, we have likelihood. So likelihood falls on this scale. So obviously, 0 being impossible, all the way to 100% being for sure. Like certain is another word for sure, right? So determine the likelihood of each event happening. Flipping a coin to get tails. So that's like a 50-50 chance, right? Because you're either going to get heads or you're going to get tails. So it's heads or tails. And so that's a 50% chance. Well, 50% falls under as likely, and I'm not going to write, so I'm just going to put abbreviations here. As likely to happen as not. So it's a 50-50 chance. Rolling a die. So on a die we have the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So on that die, what's the chance of getting a 4? Well, that's 1 out of 6. Well, 1 out of 6 is less than 1/4. Let's say it's about right, what, here? I don't know. I'm just going to guess, mate. It's probably about right there. So it's between impossible and unlikely. So from impossible to unlikely. So I would say it's more unlikely. Rolling a die to get 7. Oops, I wrote 4 twice. 7's not on a die. So is that possible at all? No, it's impossible. Rolling a die to get a number less than 8. Well, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 are all numbers less than 8. So that's a 6 out of 6 chance. It's a 100% chance of happening. It is for sure. So that's likelihood. So a simple event is an event with just one outcome possible. Find the probability of drawing a single card from a deck of cards. So there are 1 king of hearts in a deck that's 52 mini cards. So that's the probability. A black card. Well, there are 13 black cards in a deck. So that's 13 over 52. If I were to reduce, that'd be 1/4. And the probability of 3, well, there are 4 threes in a deck. So that's 4 out of 52, which reduces down to 1 over 13. So that's what we call it a simple event, just one thing happening at the same time. So a sample space is a list of every possible outcome. A vendor sells vanilla chocolate ice cream. Customers can choose from a waffle or sugar cone. So you can have a vanilla ice cream on a waffle cone. Or you can have a vanilla on a sugar cone. So those are your two options for vanilla. Or you can have a chocolate on a waffle cone or a chocolate on a sugar cone. So notice that there's 4 possible outcomes. You cannot have one of those other ones if you want ice cream at the vendor. So that's called the sample space. You just list all the outcomes possible. And then a complement is the probability, is the not prob of an event happening. The sum of an event and its complement is 1 or 100%. So we call it the complement. If someone compliments you, they make you whole, they make you 1. So the complement, so your probability plus your not probability should equal 1. Well, that doesn't make sense. We will talk about it. So if I have a die, and I'm going to write all my outcomes down because I like seeing them visually. If we have a die, I'm going to highlight everything that's not 4. That's not 4, not 4, not 4, not 4, not 4. So the probability of it not being 4 is 5 out of 6. Well, the probability of it being 4 is 1 out of 6, but so 5 over 6 plus 1 out of 6 equals 1. So that's why it's just not. So you just do everything that's not it. So not 4. So 1, 2, 3, 5, and 6 are not 4. Okay, I'm going to do it again for our next one. Not odd. So 6 isn't odd, 4 isn't odd, 2 isn't odd. So that's 3 out of 6. Not 7. Well, this one's easy because they're all not 7. So the probability of us getting that is 6 out of 6, or 100%.